Ladies and gentlemen, Nick is back 2 weeks in a row. I had to dig up his old bones out of the graveyard and beat up a bunch of people with his skeleton. But we have made it to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a brand new episode of Two Peas on a Podcast. Gerald here with you, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. And over on the other side is the anchor being in this timeline, Nicholas. How are you, sir?
Never say that again. Literally ever. I got thoughts on that.
You are my anchor being.
Contrived bunch of nonsense, but I'm good.
Whoa.
I'm missing Monday Night Raw to be here to record with you right now. So I hope that you appreciate me taking time out of my busy life to be here to look at your face.
I do. You know, I should give you 6 weeks off the show. I mean, you do too much.
True.
You do too much.
That's true.
I do appreciate it.
Dan, what do you want to come on and review next with Gerald? Is it
something on Netflix?
Trap or Alien Romulus or one of the other?
It's got to be something on Netflix
that he's got lined up for me in the queue coming up here.
We're recording a day late, so I do appreciate it. But I was drunk at a baseball game last night.
I
had to get my thoughts together, and here we are to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, the new film in the MCU, featuring Mr. Ryan Reynolds and reprising his role as Deadpool, and then we got, of course, Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, and it's the only feature film being released by the Marvel Universe in 2024, which I find interesting. It's the only movie they're putting out this entire calendar year. We'll talk a little bit about what you think about that, and also we're going to talk about a little bit about how much money this thing made in the first weekend. As like I said, we're recording on a Monday night. We're going to bring back a segment that's been missing. Well, the whole time you were gone, we didn't do it, so it's been gone for like 7 or 8 weeks. Nick, let's talk about some entertainment news as we spill the peas, brother.
Oh no, not the peas! Not the peas! Ah! There's no consistency around here, ladies and gentlemen. I take time off, and it's just the whole show gets thrown to the wolves. Can't have us spill the peas. Can't do this. Can't do that. Jeez.
I miss that sound drop, man.
Man.
How about
I worked
this?
so hard on that sound drop. People could have heard my voice while I was gone, but then you were just like, no, I don't want to do any news while he's here.
Oh, man. Well, it wasn't the same, man. I got to have you here to cue it up for us. Now, listen, we're doing Deadpool and Wolverine tonight. This is going to kind of be superhero heavy here on Spill the Peas. A huge story broke over the weekend. San Diego Comic-Con was this weekend. Yep. And Hall H is where Marvel releases all their upcoming slate and whatever they have on the agenda for the next.
Everybody does, not just Marvel. San Diego Comic-Con's like the big event for everybody, not just Marvel.
So a big one to come out of Marvel's kind of agenda was Robert Downey Jr. is returning to the MCU, but he's not going to be Iron Man, apparently. He's going to be Dr. Doom in Avengers Doomsday, which comes out the summer of 26, I believe. And then the following year, he's also going to be Dr. Doom in Secret Wars Avengers, which is 2027. Nick, I saw this, and I had some kind of mixed initial reactions to that, and I think one emotion that stayed with me was confusion. I'm kind of confused at what's going on here. Can you shed any light, or at the very least, what do you think about this casting?
Dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. It reeks so badly. And listen, people, I'm not an MCU fan, so get ready for this. Strap in for the whole episode. I hate the MCU. I always have, even the first three phases, okay? But it reeks of desperation. Like Marvel has not been doing great lately. Like, to not even say anything about the quality of any of their product, because I don't know it. I stopped watching Marvel stuff after Thor: Love and Thunder, which I absolutely detested. So I haven't seen anything since then. I don't know how any of the other stuff, but I see the stuff online and I see the dwindling box office returns. This to me smacks of desperation. They're like, we got to get Robert Downey Jr. back however we can. But we can't bring back Iron Man, so let's get him back as Dr. Doom somehow. I have several thoughts, Gerald. Number one, if he's just Victor Von Doom and they don't reference the fact that he looks like Tony Stark at all or anything like that, then that's hilarious and it's amazing. But Marvel's never going to do that because Marvel's not that cool, okay?
Sure.
Like, So what instead they're going to have to do is they're going to have to do so many mental gymnastics and so many script writing gymnastics to explain away, and there's going to be all sorts of quippy little Marvel jokes about how this character looks like Tony Stark, or maybe it is a version of Tony Stark from a different universe. All those different kinds of things. Like it smacks of desperation to me. Like that's what it feels like. It feels like they're so desperate to try to recapture the glory maybe of the first three phases. Well, who if not Robert Downey Jr. was the face of the MCU for the first three phases of it, or whatever, since it began back with Iron Man in 2008.
True.
It literally has always been Robert Downey Jr. So that's what I think about. I think it's so desperate. I don't see a creative like financially it makes sense because they've got people curious if nothing else. Like it's an A+ business decision from their perspective. And Downey, he's got all the money in the world. Like he's just going to get even more for this. I'm sure they backed up like eight trucks straight from Fort Knox to his house to pay for him to do this. But like creatively, I don't think this makes any sense. I think this is they're gonna have to spend so much screen time explaining this and it's gonna be the most convoluted bunch of nonsense like ever. And in a universe that's already full of convoluted nonsense, like it's ridiculous to me.
Look, this is like I said, I'm just so confused by it. I love RDJ. I love him. He won his Oscar last year for Oppenheimer. The guy is a seasoned actor, and even when he was in the Iron Man films, and particularly the first one in 2008, which really started this whole thing that we call the MCU now, was a great performance. It was a great character-driven, where he's playing that Tony Stark, kind of asshole, rich playboy character, and really owned it and made it his own. But when you fast forward now 25, 26 years, I mean, that it's not the same. Like it's become less about Robert Downey Jr. and about his portrayal of, in most cases, Iron Man, but now it's going to be Doctor Doom, and more about the multiverse and the timelines, and this person could die, but it's okay because they're alive in another timeline, and we can still follow the actor doing different shit, and which we get into in Deadpool and Wolverine too. I mean, we see countless Deadpools in this movie, which is not a spoiler because that's all over the trailers. But you know what I mean? The stakes are not there for me as a fan, even though I love RDJ, because it's just saying to me that, and another thing too, with Feige and the MCU and everything, I've heard all these super fans and pundits and stuff say how the MCU's whole thing is like moving forward, moving on, we're going to the next phase. We're leaving all that kind of nostalgic, everything's up to Endgame basically is kind of in the past, and we're trying to start new for a new generation and do all this stuff. So then you have your thing at Hall H, you're kind of announcing your next chapter, and you bring back the one guy that is synonymous with all that stuff to begin with. So you're not detaching yourself from it, at least not completely. So I love him. I will obviously see this. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to see it. But I don't know what my excitement level is going to be for it as we get closer and closer to the release of the project, because like we'll talk about tonight, and I know you're even more of an MCU hater than I am, I don't think I would say I'm a hater, but you know how in religion you have atheist and you have somebody that's agnostic? I'm kind of agnostic. Yep. Like, I'm kind of neutral. Like, I know that there's something good there. I just don't know that I necessarily care enough to kind of believe in it. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I am. Whereas you're probably more on the atheist side, where you're just like, God, this shit sucks. It doesn't exist. So,
like I said, it just reeks of desperation for me. And
I agree.
I've read a lot of different stuff from people like, oh, Dr. Doom always wears a mask. Listen, I hate to break your hearts now, but they did not shell out the paycheck that they gave to Downey to get him to do this, to cover his face the whole time. Like, I'm sorry, they just didn't. So brace yourselves for it now. He's not going to be under a mask the whole time. Like I said, the only way that this is great and that I would celebrate this is if they just cast him and they don't refer to it at all. Nobody brings it up. There's not a quick quip. There's not a scene of somebody looking at him being like, aren't you Tony Stark? Or there's literally nothing. Right. He's just playing a different character.
They won't
and
do
they
that,
don't
though.
draw attention to it at all. But that's not the Marvel way at all. Nobody
way.
thinks that that's going to happen at all. So, like I said, it reeks of desperation to me. It reeks of, we have to get somebody big, some huge name back in this movie to try to get butts and seats. And like I said, I think from a curiosity standpoint, I definitely think you're going to get a lot of fans that are going to show up for it that way.
Are you surprised that this was the first major project he released after winning an Oscar? Which I also thought was kind of weird because okay, before you answer, I mean, he had all the money that you mentioned from the MCU and from all.
Well, yeah, he made a fortune.
He
He made a fortune even like in his initial run.
So he kind of made it known that he wanted to do more stuff. You know, he wanted to do other things in his craft, which he did, and he won an Oscar for Oppenheimer. You know, one of the best performances of the year last year. And then
he did that god awful Doolittle movie. There was that.
He did that as well. Yeah.
Oh, there was that.
Are you surprised? I mean, I don't know. I thought he would be more. I thought he would do literally anything else, which is another reason why it's confusing.
I mean, listen, like
it's a lot of money.
I love Downey. I echo a lot of what you said about Downey. I really love Downey, and I want to believe that there's a really good reason he came back to this, and he took up this role. That's the only thing about this that has me even remotely curious. Is it curious enough to get me into a theater to see Secret Wars or whatever the heck else these movies are called?
Yeah.
Probably not, but
Doomsday will be first.
We'll see. We'll see what it all ends up leading into. But what I have every fear of, and just knowing Marvel movies the way I do, even though I'm not as connected on this stuff as a lot of people are, is there's going to be a lot of quippy jokes and references to it. There's going to be a lot of scenes between Tony / Doctor Doom and other Avengers that he had run-ins as Tony Stark, that there's going to just be a scene or a quick, and it doesn't. Why do we need that? Like, that seems so needless and useless to me.
Is there I don't know. Is there a connection between Doctor Doom and Iron Man in the comics? I mean, they're not the same person, right?
Well, no, they're not. But like, listen, and I read like some different stuff that like nerd publications put out and stuff like that today. But listen, the general audience doesn't care what comic book arc these characters have in common. Okay, general audience members are going to be like, Tony Stark's playing Doctor Doom. What does that mean?
Yeah, is he going to be Iron Man soon? What's happening?
Yeah, general audiences do not care about like, oh, well, they're tied together through this comic. No, general audiences don't care.
Speaking of general audiences and probably a lot of nerds as well, I use that term affectionately. Deadpool and Wolverine opened with 438 million worldwide. I think it was a little over 250 or so in the U.S. It's the biggest R-rated opening of all time, and it's the 8th biggest domestic opening of all time. We talked about this a little bit last week when we discussed Twisters and the summer blockbuster. Is this kind of what you were expecting, or did this overachieve in your opinion?
Oh, everybody knew this was going to make money. Everybody did. Don't we all, as a collective, feel silly now? For 2 months ago, all of us were having discussions about Furiosa, the death of cinema, and how nobody wanted to go to movie theaters and stuff like that anymore. And it turns out it wasn't so much a movie theater problem. It was just a Furiosa problem. Nobody wanted to go see Furiosa because nobody cares about your niche franchise and the terrible movie in your niche franchise. So
wow. I do not endorse that statement.
It turns out it wasn't a movie theater problem. And I mean, like, to their credit, like, theaters, I think what they've tried to do now, like such a big thing is now, and Dune 2 really started it all with the worm popcorn bucket thing. But now every franchise picture has jumped on the bandwagon of like, we got to release our own popcorn bucket because it's a unique collectible that you have to go to the theater to get. And those are the different ways. Like, we've talked about this before on the show a lot about the way that theaters need to find ways to cater to and increase and make better the customer experience. Now, I ain't dropping whatever mint they want on one of these popcorn buckets to buy. Like, I don't need to be sticking my hand in the Dune Worm's mouth or in Wolverine's mouth or whatever else. Like, I don't need any of them that bad, but I mean, they're going to get people to spend money and go to the theater to do it. So, you know, whatever they can do to increase that customer interaction kind of thing that I know we've talked about before. But yeah,
I mean, the big W is, you know, is people going out. I mean, we'll talk about what we thought about the movie here shortly. But I mean,
my screening was dead. There were not a lot of people in my screening at all.
Well, see, I went to a critics only screening like last Monday, so there was only like 30 people in there, which was great. But my wife took my little one to see the new Despicable Me this weekend, and she said it was packed. There was a lot of people in there with like superhero T-shirts, and everybody probably going to see Deadpool and Wolverine. So, you know, for that reason, I mean, please, I mean, cinema, long live cinema. You know, let's get them out there. I mean, you want it to be a good movie. You want to be on board with all the positive reactions and stuff like that. But regardless, I love to see when the box office is thriving. So there you go. That was Spill the Peas, guys. I just wanted to kind of talk about RDJ's casting there since we're having our Deadpool and Wolverine discussion. I figure we'll get a lot of ears on this episode, Nick, that maybe are superhero fans. So it's interesting. At the very least, it's interesting, and we'll see how they. I don't know how they're going to play it, man, but it's just weird and confusing, and yeah. All right, we're going to do something fun to start the episode out before we get into our review of Deadpool and Wolverine. I did a little experiment with some friends online, Nick, some mutual friends of ours, some fellow podcasters, critics, people on Twitter that we follow each other. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, but what I told you to do for homework is to bring your top homework. I made you do homework. I can't believe this.
Ridiculous.
I told you to bring your top 3 movies of 2024 so far. I also have my 3.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about 2024 so far, what we think the best offerings are in cinema. Nick, what 3 films, just give me, you can just list them in any order if you want to do 3, 2, 1, whatever you want to do. What are your favorite movies of the year so far, 2024?
Top 3 right now for me, according to my Letterboxd. I know this was your secret ploy to get me to update
I got to get
my
you back on there. Yeah.
I knew that's what it was. But no, my top 3 right now, as of the year, number 1's Twisters, number 2's Challengers, number 3 is Inside Out 2.
Nice. That's a good list, buddy. I like that. Yeah, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
It's going to be way better than your list. I know it is, because I already know what's probably going to be on your list.
Well, what I did is I didn't put my actual top 3 because of the experiment that I did. I was not going to overlap with any of our friends' choices. So the 3 movies that did not get mentioned during my experiment, which I'll tell you about here in a second, that I'm going to say are my 3 favorite films of the year, and all 3 of these would easily be my top 10. Civil War, the Alex Garland film. I love that one. I think you like that one too, just not as much.
So I gave it a 7. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
So I love Civil War. Immaculate, starring Miss Sydney Sweeney, which is a supernatural horror film, but I know you don't care about.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, supernatural horror film, nope.
And then an independent film called Thelma. Have you heard about this one?
Nope.
So Thelma is a comedy. It's kind of an action comedy about a 93-year-old grandmother that gets scammed, a telephone scam. They make her mail them $10,000, and she realizes it's a scam after. The cops won't help her. So she gets one of her buddies, portrayed by Richard Roundtree in his 80s, to go with her to hunt down the guy that took her money and get it back. It's called Thelma. June Squibb, who was the voice in Inside Out 2 of Nostalgia, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I love June Squibb.
Plays the grandma in Thelma. I highly recommend it. I just saw it a couple weeks ago, and it is hilarious. It's touching. And it's
I love June Squibb. Love her.
So those are my 3. So what I did, Nick, is I got this little randomizer thing. I Googled it. I got this little randomizer thing, and I put in like the 25 people that I interact with the most on Twitter. And I would spin it, and it would pick one person, and I would send them, and I would say, what's your favorite movie or so far, what's your favorite movie of 2024? They would give me their movie. I would spin it. The next name, I would send it. The only caveat was they could not mention a movie that had already been mentioned. All right. So we kind of got a collective pool here of what the best movies of the year so far are. I'm going to pull it up here and give you a little graphic, and this will be for the YouTube audience as well. And then we'll go through it here. I know you're going to be happy to see a few of these. So let me list them real quick for the audio audience as well. The Beast, which I have never seen, was submitted to us from Molly Raspberry. Challengers, which you also just named, which was
love Challengers, so good,
submitted by Emma Sasick. Dune Part 2. Ding, 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 ding. Jacob Throneberry sent that one to us. Evil Does Not Exist, which is also one I had not heard of prior to this, from Brendan from In Session Film. He sent that one over from the director of Drive My Car. I know he's a fan of that one. How about Furiosa, man? There you go. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. And that was submitted by JD from In Session. So I got Brendan and JD's picks there.
2 of these movies so far, not like the others. I've never seen The Beast and Evil Does Not Exist, but they cannot be worse than Dune Part 2 or Furiosa.
Come on. I couldn't name Dune Part 2 or Furiosa because of this experiment, but they would have both been in my top 3, sir.
I know they would have.
I have a firm agreement on those. I saw The TV Glow, which I have not seen yet, but it's on my watch list, which came from Dan Bayer.
I really wanted to check that out. I saw the trailer for it when I went to see something, and I can't remember what it was, but I saw the trailer for it. I really wanted to check it out. I just haven't had a chance yet.
Yeah, it looks super interesting. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is one that we discussed here on the show, and that was submitted by Matt Neglia. I know you were a fan of that one too. We were a little down on it when it came to the third act, but overall, it was a good entry into that franchise.
Yeah. Remember where the entrance to that bunker is?
Just climb over the mountain, guys. You'll find it.
Yep. Just right around the corner. Like you can see the base from it. It's right there, guys.
Jason from Binge Movies submitted "Love Lies Bleeding."
Great movie.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. Rose Glass, I love her.
That would probably be my that's like my number 4 or number 5 or something like that. It's like right outside the top 3.
And these last two were a little surprising to me personally because I was not as high on these films. But Monkey Man was submitted by my friend Lindsay Dunn, who joined us during your hiatus to discuss Inside Out 2.
Thank you, Lindsay.
She submitted Monkey Man, Dev Patel. And then the last one that got mentioned, the 10th pick, went to Lexi Williams, and she chose the new Quiet Place, Day One. Did you see that one yet, by the way? You didn't see that,
I
did
didn't
you?
see it. I didn't see it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, we covered that one on the show, too, and it was good. It just didn't do as much for me that I was probably expecting, but it wasn't a bad film nonetheless. So that's
Is it one of those
experiment.
things where it's just an existing franchise and they just keep cashing in on it because it's still profitable?
Essentially. I mean, you remember in Quiet Place Part 2 when they had the opening?
No, I didn't watch Quiet Place Part 2.
Oh, you didn't see that one either? Okay, all right.
No.
Well, it's just an elongated version of the cold open to Quiet Place Part 2, which is kind of weird. But there you go. Those are the 10 movies that would right now be in the discussion for possibly some of the best movies of the year, along with the ones that Nick and I mentioned. What do you think of 2024 so far yet, man, though? I mean, is this I know you don't like half of these, though, right? That are on the screen.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've never seen The Beast or Evil Does Not Exist, so I can't comment on those. Haven't seen Monkey Man or Quiet Place Day One, or I saw the TV Glow. So I'm literally missing out on half of this list here. I mean, a lot of the rest of it, like Love Lies Bleeding and Challengers, are easily the top 2 on this list for me right now. I mean, Challengers, again, acting masterclass by all 3 leads, especially Zendaya. She's sensational in it, and Love Lies Bleeding, so like atmospheric, so cool, and great performances in that one as well. I really, really love it. Except for like the third act in that one gets really weird, which if you've seen it, I won't ruin it, but if you've seen it,
it's very surreal.
Man, it gets weird, yo. It gets weird.
It does. It does.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I'm on an island by myself with Dune and with Furiosa, but no, those don't even belong. Those are bottom 10 of the year list for me probably. Although they're not a patch on Jake Gyllenhaal's Roadhouse.
That's also a really good one. That's probably middle of the road for me.
This, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I got put up with. You see this?
I haven't seen The Beast, Evil Does Not Exist, or I saw the TV Glow yet. But otherwise, I'm okay with this list. I mean, I wasn't as high on Monkey Man and A Quiet Place Day One, like I mentioned, but they are good films, and I can see why people would include them in their favorites of the year, especially if they have limited options. But 2024,
we gotta try to like loop a couple of those in, see if we can.
Yeah.
See if we can sneak a couple of those in somewhere for one of our weeks whenever there's an M. Night Shyamalan film playing, for example, or something like that, or a Beetlejuice movie that nobody cares about. Like we should chop one of those in there for one of those instead.
I'd love to do. I saw the TV Glow. I know that's on video on demand right now, but I think it's still like $20. But that one's high on my watch list. I just haven't had a chance to catch it yet. 2024 has been kind of weird though. Like I know this is going to sound cynical or whatever. I don't know if it's because of the strikes and stuff getting delayed. I mean, even Deadpool Wolverine is the only MCU movie. I mean, we just talked about that. I mean, I just feel like the year's been a little, like, just okay for me. Like, I was blown away, and I know you don't agree, and that's fine. I was blown away by Dune, and I was blown away by Furiosa. Those were giant spectacles. You know,
they're
those were like
10-star bangers, each one of them for you.
Absolutely. But I mean, aside from that, everything's been mostly like, yeah, that was fine. Nothing's really grabbed me this year. And usually I have quite a few movies in the race for my personal favorites. And right now it's maybe 2 or 3 movies. It's just, I don't know. I feel like the pool is not as deep this year.
I feel like we got a lot of year left to go. So let's not get, we got award season yet to come. Award season always has a few really, really nice, like really, really good movies that we dive into. And plus, I mean, like I said, there's a handful on that list right there that neither one of us has seen that are highly recommended by peers that we both respect and both love in the community. So I would love to check out all 3 of those, to be 100% honest.
Let's do it, man. Are you ready to crack the old egg here and talk about Deadpool and the Wolverine? Guys, before we dive into our feature review every week, We give our scores out of 10 to each other. We have not discussed it with each other yet. We don't know whether each other are grading the film, and then we will talk about why we landed on that number in the early score reveal.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score, and then I never score. It's not fair.
All righty, Nicholas. The fucking anchor over there. I'm going to count us in, and we're going to give our scores out of 10 on Deadpool and Wolverine. Here we go, Nick. 3.
Did you see him sitting on your shoulder, by the way? Did you see Deadpool sitting over there on your shoulder?
I gotta go wide here.
You gotta, and the YouTube audience will see it because he's just hanging out there. Deadpool's just sitting up on your shoulder. There he is.
Oh, that is.
He's just
so
sitting
cute.
on your shoulder up there.
That is.
He's
so
having
cute.
a good time. He's having a good time up there.
God damn, I love that. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1 out of 10. Got a 6 from me. Wow,
and a 4.
Wow, low.
No,
low.
I
thought I was low.
I refuse to pass this garbage.
I thought I was low. 6 out of 10 and a 4 out of 10 from Nick, which makes it a 5 out of 10. You see how I did that? That was quick math, buddy. I didn't even have to fucking stop and do the numbers.
Scary.
5 out
I
of
was
10
afraid I was going to have to come in here and like fight off Gerald, and he was going to throw another 10 on another really undeserving film. I'm surprised you of all people went with a 6 on this, man. So
do you want me to go first, general, or do you want to go first?
I'm curious. Well, I'm curious. There's so much about this movie that you can't talk about without spoiling it. So it's going to be so vague and generalized until we get there, folks. So just keep that in mind. But yeah,
we will let you know when we
finally
get into
the P's together have a sensible take. I just want to point that out. Usually I'm the only voice of reason in here, but now Gerald's wisened up this week.
Let me tell you, general thoughts. I'm not going to spoil anything yet because there are a lot of spoilers for this movie that, frankly, I'm pissed because they've all been spoiled. The movies, we're recording this on a Monday. You already can find every single. Yeah, me too.
I'm glad I saw it opening day. Yeah, this already would have been ruined for me if I would have seen it.
And honestly, Nick, to your point, if I had seen this after I was spoiled on all that stuff, my score would have been worse. Because I kind of scored this after seeing it. And I was surprised by a lot of those cameos and different things.
Which
but
I want to say before we even jump on that point, like we're both talking about that. We're both making that point that like that's a lesson to learn for anybody in the audience that maybe hasn't seen this yet or didn't get a chance to see it until like after the weekend or maybe Monday or Tuesday, whatever. Don't go on social media if you're really hyped for a film that you know is going to have a lot of secrets in it. And you don't want it spoiled for you, stay off social media. Go find something else to do.
You have to.
Get off social media so it doesn't get ruined for you. Because the culture out there is not going to change. There's going to be people, no matter what, somewhere, some platform, somebody's going to try to ruin it for you. Don't let them. Just stay off social media.
I can't mention the specific names quite yet because I don't want to be the one to spoil it for anybody. But I mean, we were watching Entertainment Tonight.
Oh, not his name. No, not him. Okay.
We were watching Entertainment Tonight at my house tonight, which is a nationally syndicated news broadcast, and they were talking about 2 actors' cameos in Deadpool and Wolverine on a Monday night.
Well, not even
Monday
that.
After it came out.
Not even that. We already talked about Comic-Con was this weekend. They had a whole bunch of the actors that were there. They all showed up at the panel for Deadpool and Wolverine at Comic-Con, and they had it all over Twitter, like literally the day after I saw it, which was. What was it, Wednesday or Thursday? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like literally everywhere all over Twitter. So I was even shocked, like major publications like it, or that they would even have all of them there like that. Like that just seemed odd to me, but I guess it just happens to be the weird timing of the way that Deadpool Wolverine's marketing tour is going and the release of the film versus like the Comic-Con schedule and stuff like that. Which can I also say, Gerald, before we talk about the movie proper, this marketing campaign for Deadpool Wolverine, 20 out of 10. It's been so great watching Hugh and Ryan all over literally every show, making fun of each other, ribbing each other, like having fun like friends do. It's been really, really great to watch. I've loved the marketing campaign for this. I really wish I had loved this. I love the first Deadpool. Like a lot. Where are you on the first 2 Deadpool movies? You liked 1 better? You liked 2 better? You kind of the same on both, or?
I liked 1 better, but I did like 2 a whole lot. I mean, it's probably like an 8 versus a 7.
Yeah, I liked 2 as well. I think 2 is probably like a 7 for me. I really loved 1. I think 1 was really, really incredible. But go ahead. I didn't mean to jump all in on you there, but I wanted to get those points out.
I mean, the only thing I want to say, general thoughts before we get into the spoiler talk, and this will probably come up again when we do get there, but the 6 out of 10 for me, I left this movie disappointed, okay? And I didn't really know why, because I had fun with it. Like, I did have a good time watching this. So I realized if you go into this movie, or if you set your expectations to this is going to be a comedy, you're going in there to laugh your ass off, to see a lot of ridiculous dick jokes and Ryan Reynolds doing his thing. And then it's cool to kind of get this grisly, grimy Logan character back as well. And he's kind of doing his thing where he's, trying to forget his past. And, we'll get there with all that stuff too. And I love Wolverine. I'm wearing the hat tonight. I named my son after Wolverine. I mean, it's one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. And I think Hugh Jackman is easily one of the best superhero representations we've ever gotten in live action. I mean, he just owns this character, and probably one of the reasons why the guys asked him to come back for it is because you just can't really see anybody else doing this. You know what I mean? He's just done it for so long. He's done it so well, and that character is a part of him, and you can kind of see that, like you said, when he's on the press junket and stuff like that. He's talking about it. So the comedic parts of this movie worked really well for me. I really enjoyed myself when it wasn't taking itself too seriously, when it was just doing stupid, over-the-top things that were really meant to elicit laughs, which they did for me for the most part. The jokes worked for me, mostly coming from Deadpool. Some of the cameos that were meant to be tongue-in-cheek and funny worked for me too. I thought they were special at times, but it was never like, oh my God, I'm going to cry. I can't believe that. Like, I never felt like that. It just more was kind of like funny, like surprisingly funny. Like, oh my God, they got him to come back or them to come back. It was just kind of crazy. And it was just kind of cute. It just felt good for a portion of time there for me as a fan of some of those characters in the past. But when you get away from the comedy part though, and the action's good too, but when you get away from all that kind of lowbrow stuff and you start to get to a deeper meaning in this movie, there's not one. There's no coherence to what is going on with these characters. There's nothing elaborated on that would make me connect to why they're even in this journey. Why the hell are we even watching this, aside from the hardcore fanboys? This movie's for the fanboys. This movie's all nostalgia, all like, here, let me touch your little pecker with this little nostalgia thing from 20 years ago and the fucking X-Men, whatever. Like, I mean, like you said earlier, the general audience doesn't give a fuck, dude. Like, they're not going to know, and I can't mention names yet, but they're not going to know who X, Y, and Z is. But, I mean, and if they do, they're going to be confused. Like, what? You know what I mean? So, I like parts of it. The funny parts really hit with me. I thought it was a very funny film. I had a good time with it. I just left going, what if let me put it this way, and then I'll let you give your generals real quick.
Yeah.
If I was an avid fan of the MCU, which I'm not anymore, pre-Endgame, you could maybe make that argument. I was pretty on board. I was buying all the Blu-rays. I was going to every opening, but after Endgame, I've just kind of slowly dwindled off a little bit more. If I was an avid fan of it like I was 5 years ago, and I followed this stuff, I would leave this going, what are we doing here? How did this movie have anything to do with my future as a fan or a future of this franchise? And I just don't see how it does. I feel like it has blinded a lot of people because I've seen a lot of people that do love it, but I feel like it's blinding them that, like, what's the point of it though? You know what I mean? Like, why does this exist in the grand scheme of things other than to just be an avenue for Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds to be on camera together, which is great. I mean, I'm glad we have it. I mean, like I said, I had a good time with it. I just don't see the point. Go ahead, man.
So it's funny that you mentioned like the whole nostalgia thing and everything like that, because my instant review out of the theater, when I saw it, I was like, everybody by now is familiar with the Hook to a Girl.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
that whole dumb thing that's gone out there, and somehow she's going to like UFC fights and stuff, and like
she's everywhere.
I don't know, it's weird. But anyway, I walked out of the theater and I instantly, like, I had to do an instant reaction. So I was like, this movie, Marvel Studios, is the Hook to a Girl, and your nostalgia is that thing, because that's all
There
this
you go.
movie's trying to do, is it's trying to cash in on your nostalgia. So if you're somebody who showed up in the theater to have your nostalgia boner rubbed, I used to talk about this kind of stuff all the time on Epic Film Guys, and it drove me nuts because Justin always used to lap this stuff up like a dog in a desert, like giving a bowl of water, like slurping it up, like loving nostalgia stuff so much. I hate stuff like this. I hate it. It feels so pandering. Like, it feels like you're pandering to me, especially when they just keep rolling out cameo after cameo after cameo after cameo. Now, what you said about the comedy stuff, for the most part, there's a lot of good comedy in this that I think works really well. I think Jackman and Reynolds' chemistry, like, obviously they are great friends together, and this has been a passion project and an idea that they've both really wanted to get off the ground for years and years. So you could tell that they're really, really invested in trying to make this the best movie that they can. They, however, cannot save this absolute pile of dog shit that Marvel calls a script. Can you, if you cut out all of the TVA stuff in this movie where they are talking about like anchor beings and timelines and having these people in these really weird 70s looking orange computer screen rooms, like talking all the stuff, all of the actual plot of this movie, Gerald, is so unfathomably bad. It makes the rest of this movie almost unwatchable. It's so bad by comparison. Like, I can't even get in the mood to laugh at the next funny shtick that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are going to do in the next scene, or to enjoy the next cameo, because the writing is so bad for the rest of this movie. When you asked what the point was, there wasn't a point. There was no point. We'll talk about a lot more of it in spoilers. Like, there's the barest little nugget of a little bit of like character through line from a couple of different characters and things like that we can't talk about. But overall, like I said, that all this is meant to do, all this movie wants to do, is pander to your nostalgia. So if you want to go in the theater and just and get right down there on that thing, then you know what, this movie's going to be for you. If you want to go in there and turn your brain off, which is a phrase I hate saying. It feels in the mouth. I hate saying it. It's terrible because you should never have to turn your brain off to enjoy something. If you just want to go there to have nostalgic references and characters and all this kind of different stuff thrown at you, really overtly in some cases, then you're gonna love this. But if you a shred of critical thinking skill when you have to watch these and I'm dreadful, Gerald, I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League. I've seen like all these 4-hour-long movies or longer, or like TV series where I've binged end on end. The scenes at the TVA, like the scene at the TVA of like setting up the whole plot of this film, what is like 10 minutes into it, I legitimately wanted to take a nap. It was so bad, Gerald. I hated it.
It was just
so
paradox, like literally being like, all right, here's what is mapped out for the rest of the movie. It's just like telling it to you. And then they go do, Deadpool goes and does it. I agree. There's way too much fucking exposition in this film, by the way, which, God bless. What's the actor's name? Let me pull it. Michael. What's his name again?
I don't even know. Don't even care.
On,
Character was terrible.
Yeah, Matthew McFadden. God bless him for being the character that got all the exposition dump. I mean, every time
that
he
character
was on camera,
was so bad. This
unbelievably
bad. It was. Oh God, all right.
And
we got to get into all the spoiler stuff.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
Let's run the spoiler. Dan, get in here and do your thing. Spin on that thing for us, and we'll be back to talk about spoilers on the other side.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for sticking with us. We're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Nick gave it a 6. I gave it a 4. This is your spoiler, or no?
Flip backward, other way.
See what I did there to you? I gave it a 6.
Don't you dare add points to my score of this film, sir. Don't you?
I've seen if you notice. I gave it a 6. Nick gave it a 4. This is your spoiler warning. Anything going forward, we're going to be talking about the whole shebang of Deadpool and Wolverine. And there are a lot of secret, and I use the term secret very loosely thanks to social media, cameos in this film, and some different spoiler things that you probably will not want to hear until after you've seen the movie. So this is your warning. Nick, the movie I loved. Let me just do a couple positive things. I love the opening to this film. The first 10 minutes, the credit sequence.
Opening's great.
NSYNC.
The credit sequence is great. Yep.
I was
I was so
rock
on board
hard,
at that
dude.
point.
Yeah.
Dude, I was so on board for this movie at that
It's
point. I
this
was like,
is
yeah,
fucking
baby.
awesome.
I was like, this is going
And
to
he
be
has
great.
that. He digs the body up.
It makes no bones about the fact that it
Hey, I
is
see what you
not
did there.
going to give. I hate you so much. It is not going to give. It's going to lean so hard into R from the jump. It doesn't hesitate at all to let you know that this is not going to be your standard MCU fare where you're not going to see any blood. This thing is bloody, like an absolute blood bath, if I may use that term of a comic book movie.
Gruesome, dude.
It's got a huge body count, which is hilarious and amazing in all the ways. And I mean, in the opening sequence, he literally digs up Logan from the end of a Logan, like James Mangold's Logan movie. And then he's literally using the parts of his body, his adamantium body, to kill TVA agents as they're coming and trying to apprehend him. It's great. Legit. Gerald, I was rolling, and I'm like, man, if this is what this whole movie's going to be like, I'm so here for this.
I was such a good opening. I was with our friend Kayla, patron of the show, and I mean, her and I were both just eating that shit up. It was hilarious. Yeah. He has that line where he pulls Logan's body out. And he does that thing where he's kind of like narrating what he's doing. You know, he's fourth wall breaking kind of. And he's like, you know, I'm going to dig this body up. You're Logan. You can't die. You've healed. You're just hanging out in the dirt because you don't want people to find you. You know, and then he pulls him up and it's literally a skeleton. You know, and they're sitting there on the fucking stump together. And I don't remember the exact line, but Reynolds is like, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think you're going to make it. You know, something like that. And then he uses his body parts, like you said, to just kind of fucking take care of business. And they have the whole cool, you know, and Deadpool, the movies, they always, you know, employ some kind of really cool credit sequence. You know, it was Angel of the Morning for the first one with the car crash, and it was NSYNC's Bye 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 for this one. So anyway, I was first 10 minutes, I'm like, man, this is fun. This is going to be, thank God, this is going to be great. Then you already alluded to it a little bit. Deadpool's hanging out with his friends at his birthday party. We find out he's been like a used car salesman or whatever in his downtime since leaving the last film, I guess.
Which hold up. I haven't watched Deadpool 2 since I saw it in the theaters or anything like that, so I'm not up on the lore or anything like that, as it were. But since when? Why does he quit being Deadpool? Like, is that a thing that they talked about in part 2, or is that just something that I was supposed to?
And that's another huge problem for me.
It's just like all of a sudden he like decides he's gonna quit being Deadpool, and then he's like hanging out having a party with all of his friends with a toupee stapled to his head, which I mean is fine as a funny sight gag or whatever to have him in this ridiculous toupee that he's wearing and everything like that. But then you know what the really frustrating thing is about this, G, is in the opening of the movie and then even like at the very end, it gives you all the characters from the first two. It gives you the Colossus, it gives you Negasonic Teenage Warhead, it gives you like all the characters from the first two, and it's like, okay, these characters are going to be part of it. No, they're not.
No,
they're not. They're literally in the scene at the beginning and then a very quick button at the end, but they're not in it at all. Like, not even Colossus. Like, you couldn't even have Colossus in this thing knocking somebody around.
Yeah, he needed to be in there somehow. That would have made a lot of sense. But while we're talking about this, I mean, as a through line for this movie, really my main inherent problem with the film is the low stakes and the lack of any kind of personal connection to the proceedings between at least from the Deadpool angle. I mean, Wolverine has a little bit there because of his backstory, which also I don't feel like they spend enough time on, but we'll get there in a second. But since you're talking about it, so Deadpool wants to know where he belongs in the universe, if he's worthy, or what's the phrase he uses? Like, if I have I guess at some point or something like that.
Like, at some point he tried to go and sign up to be in the Avengers or something like that. Like, this is the whole plot of the movie, like explained away, like whisked away, like in the very brief opening part of the movie. Because at first it shows you the opening and then it flashes back to this.
Right, and then it goes back to him at the party or whatever.
Yeah, it shows like apparently when he gets Cable's time travel or dimension travel, whatever thing in Deadpool 2, he uses it to go to have a meeting with Happy Hogan and try to become a part of the Avengers, and then they don't let him in, and he's just like, well, I'm going to quit Deadpooling then. Like, it's the most...
It's just stupid.
The
it
writing
doesn't make
of
any
this movie
sense.
is so bad.
It doesn't make any sense, and if it did make any sense, why was he so quick to return to Deadpooling when he got Paradox's fucking exposition a few minutes later? But also another thing, too, about... Vanessa, his love, his girlfriend, is, I don't think they ever got married, right? In the first two movies, I think
I
just,
don't know.
I don't think they did, but that might be his wife. I apologize, I can't remember. But anyway, the love of his life, Vanessa, and so he doesn't want to be with her, or she didn't want to be with him because he never lived up to his full potential as Deadpool.
He stopped Deadpooling, and then she was just like, "Well,
yeah, this is like
I don't
weird.
Love you if you're not
you know?
Deadpooling or something like that." Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is like either underexplained or like, as somebody who hasn't really followed this stuff as closely the last 5 or 6 years, I just don't get. But I don't.
They
understand.
had a big bag, Gerald. They had a big grab bag, sackcloth full of just comic book movie tropes, and they were just reaching in and grabbing them and slapping them to the wall. Hero gives up on himself. Hero quits being the superhero until he learns how to become whatever. Like, they were just slapping all this different stuff at the wall, but none of it sticks.
So we get that weird fucking whatever used car shit and the party and just that fucking annoying exposition dump to get him back in the Deadpool suit and all that stuff. And because of all the exposition, we're also kind of caught up. Like, okay, he's got to find Logan. If he can bring Logan back to life, you know, or get another Logan, then he could save that timeline that Vanessa and his friends are living in, which is fucking stupid. But I mean, anyway, that's going to be his quest. So I was a little bit like, what angle is this going here? And then I think the great montage scene, which I also loved, of him going to look for all the Logans. And we get the little small person Logan, fucking Henry Cavill, which was rumored to be cast as Logan several years ago.
The Cavalrine, yeah.
The Cavalrine.
That was so good. That was really, really great, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. He did the fist pumps when he brought the claws out, which was reminiscent of the Mission Impossible.
That was so good. So good.
So I was on a high with that scene too. I was like, okay, maybe we'll kind of right the ship here and we'll get back on track here. What did you think once Logan did get introduced? He found what was presumed to be the worst version of Logan in one of these timelines. And I want to hear what you think about Logan's kind of introduction to this MCU with this movie. Because go ahead. What did you think? I want to hear what you thought first. I got a couple thoughts.
It's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, the whole first, like, 15, 20 minutes of this movie, not even 15, 20 minutes. It's like 5, 10, 15 minutes. The whole thing is just this whole contrived, convoluted bunch of nonsense that's just meant to get Logan and Deadpool together. That's literally the only point and purpose of everything that's happened in the film up to this point, really. So it just, it did way more than it had to. Like I said, I love, like you talked about the montage. The montage is great of going to like all sorts of different Logans and everything like that. But it's all just ham-fisted, dumb, convoluted shenanigans. Spit on that thing. Mm-hmm. So it's all just this dumb, annoying, convoluted nonsense to get these characters together. I think they're fine. I think him, man. I'll tell you what. One of my favorite things about this movie that I noticed kind of right away was like, man, you could tell they didn't let Hugh swear in any of the other X-Men movies because, man, I think every fourth word out of Wolverine's mouth is an F-bomb in this movie. Even more so than Deadpool, which, I mean, I'm fine with. It doesn't bother me. But I was just like, man, they are making sure that they're taking advantage. Disney's letting us do an R-rated Deadpool movie. We are going to make everything as R-rated as we possibly can. And I really love that aspect of it. I mean, like I said, it was fine. I don't think it was bad. But did you think it was bad? Did you not like it?
No, here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say about the Wolverine inclusion here and his kind of introduction to this is that I don't think they did enough with his backstory aside from just these little one-off mentions about he killed all the X-Men basically because he was a drunk. And they mentioned it a few times.
Which is super, like, what? Okay. I was like, okay, sure. No problem, sure.
But they don't. There's one scene, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually.
Wait. Rewind just a second here. Yeah. All the X-Men got killed by humans who went mutant hunting at the Charles Xavier School for Gifted Children. And, like, I'm sorry, but you got a Cyclops, you got a Jean Grey, you got a Storm, you got all these different X-Men, you got a Professor X.
Yeah.
A bunch of randos showing up there to try to gun down Cyclops or something ain't flying with me because like I'm sorry, it ain't gonna happen.
It doesn't
It was
add
the
up,
weirdest,
but also
it was such a weird setup to that too. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I see what you're getting at there.
It was a weird setup, and they didn't pay it off by showing us any of it to where it would be more believable or make a little.
Well, they
more
couldn't
sense.
get those actors for cameos, Gerald.
Well, maybe. I mean, they got every other fucking cameo in Hollywood, so I don't know. But anyway, that was missing for me. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of why he was such a tortured character. What I was going to mention, though,
and then the best part of that is that he unbecomes a tortured character and decides to become a hero because Daphne, who is X-23 from Logan, sits down next to him at a fire and has a 30-second conversation with him. Like it's the quickest character turn like in the history of everything. She sits down and is like, "You're a hero to me." You're
because he was straight up like, "I'm not fucking doing this. Fuck you guys. You guys fucking do." You know. And then like 2 minutes later, yeah, I will say Daphne King grew up though, did she not? Hold on, let's make sure she's 18. Is she 18?
This is what I got to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that earring over there. Look at that earring over there. Look at that earring.
She was born in 05. We're good. What's that? How old is that? That's good, right? She's 19. She's a great actress. That's all I meant. She's X-23's back. By the way, Juice, you probably didn't see it. They did another trailer like a week before the movie came out, and she was in the trailer.
No, I didn't watch that. No, I didn't watch
Yeah, I was pissed. I was like, oh my God, that would have been another one that I would have loved to have seen in real time. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the cameos. And we mentioned Henry Cavill. Daphne Keene's back as X-23. I obviously love James Mangold's Logan, one of my favorite superhero films, maybe only second to The Dark Knight, me personally, but I love that movie. I loved her in it. In this, I feel like she's just kind of there for her to be in this movie. I mean,
100%. She's just there, and that's the way it is with most of the cameos too. So before anybody gets their, I mean, if you're still listening to this and you haven't watched it, but you just wanted it to be spoiled because you don't care, I promise you, they treat all these cameos with the same amount of care. They're just there to be there. Generally speaking, they're there to be like, remember this character from the Fox Marvel universe? Remember this character? Didn't you love this character? Well, no, nobody did, but here they are. You know.
So here's another thing that doesn't sit right with me. Now, I'm reviewing this film obviously from my perspective. I'm not going to review it from the perspective of, like my 22-year-old daughter, for example, or from an 18-year-old kid that, may be seeing it. But we got Wesley Snipes in there as Blade. We got Jennifer Gardner as Elektra. These are movies that 20, 25, 30 years ago came out. Characters that have not been reprised since then. We have Channing Tatum, who I love, come in here as Gambit, which I did think was funny because that's his favorite character. I don't know if you know, but he had lobbied to be Gambit. He wanted them to make a Gambit.
Well,
movie.
And they had a
play it.
They had a film like in some stage. I think it was a pre-production. Like it never got to camera or anything like that. But like they had him signed to actually do a Gambit movie.
Exactly, which is why I thought that was kind of funny.
I think that's one of the things that died off in the Disney purchase. Actually, I think it's one of the things that died when Disney bought Fox because they kind of just let a lot of these projects that were announced but didn't really have anything recorded or anything. They just kind of let them die on the vine because they obviously wanted to do their own thing.
So let me ask you this
and stuff at some point.
Let me ask you this in your opinion. So like if an 18 or 19-year-old kid goes to see this movie because it's it's the hot shit and everybody's talking about it and Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, blah blah blah. Do they care? Do they even get any of these cameos? Do they get any of these references?
No. So, it's an entire and this is the thing, and this is the thing that I was like, it's a nostalgia piece for the Fox Marvel universe. You can't just say X-Men because it touches on like Daredevil and Elektra and Blade and even the Fantastic Four when we get Chris Evans popping up as Johnny Storm.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's I'm sorry, but that's one of the best cameos in the whole thing. Because when he first shows up, I'm like, how did they get him back to play Cap? He said he's been one of the actors that's been like, no, I'm done. But then like to get him back, I was like, how on earth did they get him back unless it's just going to be a throwaway, whatever. But then when he flames on and takes off, I laughed. I was like, oh, that was
great.
Like that was great. Good. That was real good when he was Johnny Storm. But anyway, like it's a nostalgia play for the Fox Marvel universe. But is there a big core of audience members, I guess, that are probably around our age that are really maybe even actually younger than me, because I was probably in my teens and like early 20s when a lot of those movies came out. Maybe people that are like in their early to mid 30s, that would have been kids watching those movies when they came out. Maybe it plays well to them and their nostalgia for these characters, but I don't think Fox Marvel like nostalgia is a thing, but this movie sure tries to convince you that it is. Like, I mean,
I agree with you, but
you're
my thing
not even
is
talking about the hero characters that show up, but you also have like Azazel shows up as one of the bad guys. The Juggernaut from X-Men 3 is the Juggernaut in this movie, and like Toad from the first X-Men movie is in this, and all those kind of different. Sabretooth is in this and then gets killed in about 4 seconds, which is a dumb throwaway thing. It's like they brought it back and then made a gag out of it, which is, I guess, the Marvel way, so whatever.
But my thing is move on, which is what I thought we were doing. And I'm talking about based on what the Marvel universe has been saying. Like, I don't know. I just, again, I hate to be that. I hate to be that. I hate to be that cynical. But it's just like,
I hate movies. I really, 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 and people might disagree with it. People might have loved all the nostalgic bits of it and lapped it up. I hate movies that pander to nostalgia because that's the only way they can put butts in seats. I hate it. I find it to be like just gross. Like, you can have things that are nostalgia. Like, remember in the Flash movie when Batman's in it, but then they have the Flash at his hideout and he pulls out the laughing Joker bag from like Jack Nicholson's Joker. Like, why is that a thing that would just be there laughing 40 years later? Like, it's dumb stuff like that. It's meant to pander to the audience. It's meant to be like, hey, you remember when? Like, it thinks you're stupid as an audience member. Like, I really firmly believe that, and I really, really, really hate it when movies do it.
Well, that's my problem too, though, is that an argument could be made that Deadpool and Wolverine did not need that, and that the butts were going to be in the seats regardless, because a lot of this stuff was right. A lot of this stuff was kept under secret until the movie came out. Then people started spilling it everywhere. But it made $250 million in the U.S., and that was before a lot of this stuff came out. So you didn't have to do that. Yeah, throw them in there like happy little like, oh, is that fucking Wesley Snipes? Like, what's going on? I mean, it's like Cavalry was cool, shit like that. But it's like, the movie, the story cannot be like, let me put it this way. You can't walk away from this movie with the only thing going, wow, I can't believe they got this actor. I can't believe they brought Jennifer Garner back. By the way, she looked fucking great. All right, this little sidebar there. I can't believe, this, that. Why is that what we're taking away from it? And not like I didn't have any connection to what was going on here other than just
because Gerald, it's the entire second act of the movie is nothing but cameos. See, like, you talk about the Gambit thing, and that's a thing that never was. Channing Tatum wanted to play him. They had the whole project, but it got dropped, blah blah blah. And I thought it was cool. Like, it's funny. Like, the costume reminded me of the animated series X-Men. I never read comics or anything like that, but it reminded me enough of Gambit from that. And he definitely had that thick Cajun accent. But then it's just like literally the 10 minutes that they're on screen together in that cabin. Every time he says anything, there has to be a joke about how hard he is to understand, like, his accent. Like, it's like eventually it becomes overkill at some point. Like, we get it.
Reynolds was like, who's your dialect coach?
That was the entire second act of this movie. Instead of taking the time to develop like the plot or to develop characters, like, for instance, Gerald, I challenge you right now, tell me one defining character trait of Cassandra Nova, the main villain of this movie, except for the fact that she is Charles Xavier's sister. One character trait of that character. Go.
That's it. That's all they drilled into our heads.
That's literally her only defining trait, is that she's Charles Xavier's sister.
I mean, the other thing that they, which again was a very thin, weak point and very thin, but she's in the void, right? And she's the queen there. She fucking runs the show there. So she just basically wants to turn the whole world into the void. And that way she'll be the ruler of the world. And it's like, why? You know what I mean? Like, what? Where did this come from? What is the character's like? What's her driving motivation?
That I really, really hate is it does the Venom type of screenwriting where it just keeps its villain off in a different place for no reason really until Act 3, until it needs them to actually become a threat. Like, she's clearly powerful. I don't know if that's what being an Omega mutant means or whatever, because they say she's an Omega mutant or whatever. But, like, she's clearly really powerful and could just leave the void and do whatever she wants to at literally any time anyway, but just decides that she's never going to until the plot needs her to. Like, she's so powerful she can just walk out and do whatever she wants whenever she wants.
Right.
I like it. Just, it's so frustrating. And like I said, the fact that you never get more than a very literally surface level. I mean, she's bald, so Charles Xavier's bald, so she's bald. Like, and that's the MCU's MO, right? That's one of the reasons I hate MCU movies to begin with, is because their villains are all so paper thin, they may as well not even register as a threat. Deadpool and Wolverine could have been fighting against paper cuts here, and it would have been as threatening.
Yeah, and it's not earned either. And I'm talking about for Cassandra's arc, because, Deadpool and Wolverine come back to her lair or whatever, and they basically talk her into allowing them to go back to the timeline and leave the void. It's not an earned thing for her to have that turn where she's like sentimental for a moment, because if she's this Omega villain who's been ripping fucking Chris Evans' skin off, which by the way was an awesome scene, I thought, where she just kills him because he was talking shit about her. I just
I loved, like, just the button that. I loved that gag that they carried. Did you stay for the post credits? Did you stay for the post credits?
I did, but I'm pissed about the post credits.
I liked it. I liked the post credits. You tell me why though.
It was funny, and that's what you're saying. That's the best parts of this movie, is when it's a comedy. But the reason I was pissed at first is because the joke is on us. The joke is on the MCU fans that went to see this movie and that stayed for the infamous end credits in Marvel. Sometimes mid credits, sometimes end, sometimes both, whatever. But there's always something, and you stay. Now, why I was pissed initially, even though I did think it was a funny gag, was because I thought, okay, finally, they're going to say, this, we're closing the book on this. This is what we're doing next, and this is why we're doing it. There was also strings that hadn't been tied up yet. Like Kelsey Grammer was in one of the end credits as Beast from previous X-Men. Like, we haven't seen any of that shit come to fruition. And I don't care as much now as I did like 5 or 6 years ago, but it was just another joke, right? It was just another joke. It didn't set anything up for a future film.
I thought that aren't all Marvel end credit scenes like end, like the ones at the very end are always just gags though. I didn't think any of that. Maybe like
Not
phase
always.
1, maybe like really early Marvel was like setting up like the next thing, but they've been a joke for a long time. Like, they've been a joke for a long time.
But didn't you think sitting through a movie,
even the first Avengers, like the post credit scene is just them eating shawarma, right?
Right. Yeah, I should speak for myself, but I mean, I guess I was thinking this movie is a joke, and I'm not meaning that to be negative, although it kind of is, but I mean, it was just like a comedy. Like, there was nothing really serious. There was no high stakes. Like, we didn't get any advancement in the MCU. It was just Deadpool and Wolverine, buddy cop movie, making jokes and whatever. Which is great, but I mean, it's not going to be a larger thing for things to come. You know what I mean? So as a fan watching that, I'm thinking, okay, in the post-credit scene, we're going to get something. We're going to get something for the upcoming thing, the shit they announced this weekend with, maybe not RDJ, but I mean, we'll get something alluding to that stuff. I don't know. And it was just another joke. So I guess my point is kind of what we said in the opening, which you and I agreed, is that this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, while it has entertaining qualities to it, and I did enjoy it, I just don't understand where it goes in the puzzle. And it's ironic because Marvel, one of the reasons why I've fallen off of them in the last 5 years is because everything's a goddamn puzzle piece, and you have to see this puzzle piece to place it here so that you can see that one, and you got to put the corner piece up here or you won't know what this is. And Deadpool even makes a couple jokes about that in this movie, like, oh, that's the guy from Loki season 2, episode 5, or whatever he says, which is not an episode I saw, by the way, because I didn't watch the second season. But I mean, that's my point, is that I'm not invested enough now to watch 50 fucking TV shows and read all these graphic novels and shit to understand
I've never watched a single second of anything Marvel TV has ever done, and I never will. Like, I don't care about it enough.
Yeah. So overall, overall, let's wrap up. Overall, I was disappointed. However, I do recommend the film. I think this movie is for fans of the franchise, fans of, well, definitely Deadpool. And this is more a Deadpool movie than it is a Wolverine movie, which I frankly would have kind of rather it been the other way because I'm a little bit more of a Wolverine fan. But this is a Deadpool movie. It's just like Deadpool 1 and 2, but with much lower stakes. He's basically a stand-up comedian. His motives are very thin, very thinly veiled. I don't really know why he's in this state in his life. It was never really something that I bought, that he would just like, oh, I'm going to stop doing this and be a used car salesman. I'm going to break up with my girlfriend because I'm not worthy, and that's it. And I'll be fine. I'll just hang out with my friends barbecuing. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, it never came full circle for me. There's a lot of shit in this movie I really liked. I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to probably own it when it comes out. I think it's hilarious. It's very funny. I was laughing a lot during the movie. But aside from the action, we get to see Wolverine and Deadpool fight on 2 occasions that I thought were really good scenes. Once in the car and once when they first get to the Void. I love those scenes.
Yep, yeah, action was good.
Aside from the action and the comedy, though, this thing just is there. I mean, it's either you like it or you don't. But I mean, it's not going to do anything for anybody beyond the 2 hours that you spend watching it. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. So just, if you've listened to this episode, hopefully you've already seen it. But my warning would be just don't go in expecting anything larger than Deadpool and Wolverine having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, they think you're stupid as an audience member, quite frankly. The whole movie is just pandering to nostalgia that I didn't even know was a thing. I didn't know Fox Marvel nostalgia was even a thing. How'd the behind-the-scenes montage play for you in the over the closing credits? Because they made it obvious, if it wasn't already obvious before you finished watching the film, that this was meant to be some kind of love letter to the Fox, X-Men, Marvel franchise, like sending like a love letter, because you get to see all this behind the scenes stuff of literally every film. I mean, they even had like Fantastic Four from 2015 behind the scenes stuff in there, and all the X-Men movies. You had Fassbender and McAvoy and Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, like all these different people. So like, did that play for you at all or no?
I mean, I didn't hate it, but it did seem out of place. I don't know. It just seemed weird. I don't know. It was weird.
I mean, I knew what they were doing. Like, by the time it got through that second act of just like dumping so many different like forgotten Fox Marvel characters at us, that it was very, very clear that they were just trying to, again, the hawk to us, spit on that nostalgia boner and rub it for you real good. Like, because they just want to pander to you. And, like, I'm sorry, but I need more than that from a movie. Like, when you take that stuff out of this movie, the plot doesn't work. The villain is paper thin and absolutely terrible. And the only things memorable about this are like opening dance sequence to In Sync, Bye Bye Bye, and a few random cameos and stuff like that. Don't watch this in the theater. I'm going to not recommend that you go see this in the theater. Wait for clips to hit YouTube and then just watch all the best bits on YouTube, because this film barely deserves that.
Yeah, guys, I know we don't have a ton of listeners, but if you're listening to this, you got to stop spoiling shit on social media for people. And the other side of that is get off social media if there's a movie that's important to you, because I'll tell you right now, this movie had not even been out a day, and they were dropping, like, Deadline Hollywood had a article about fucking Cavill. Yeah, and like, it was like the day it came out. I was like,
it's really, really crazy. And can I just as a final button, because Angry Nick's been here the whole episode, just as a final button, can we start considering it a criminal offense of journalists that ask really old actors or celebrities questions to try to bait them into getting a clickbaity viral response? Because I'm so annoyed by watching this press tour that Harrison Ford's been on because of Comic-Con, and they keep asking him all these dumb nerdy questions, knowing that it's Harrison Ford, knowing that he's a crotchety old man that doesn't want to hear their stupid fandom questions in the first place. Like, please, can we consider this I want to throat punch these people when I see these interviews. I hate this stuff. It's the same people that like they ask Scorsese about comic book movies all the time,
right?
Because they want to have him and his old man yells at cinema, like clickbaity headline that they can post on Twitter and get like 10,000 shares. Like, it's
turns
ridiculous.
out he was right the whole time.
Pisses me off so bad.
I saw one with Harrison Ford recently though that was really funny, because they were talking about the Red Hulk, which he's going to be in the next Captain America film with Anthony Mackie. and they were promoting that, and he one of the interviewers was asking him about the anchor being in Deadpool and Wolverine, and they were asking him who would be the anchor being in his timeline, 616, and Harrison Ford's just like, 616? What's that? He didn't even know it was his fucking timeline. Like, this guy doesn't give a shit. He just shows up, reads the lines, does his thing, and
we're going to see the whole thing again when that movie actually comes out too, because Harrison Ford's going to be making the press rounds, and it's going to be nerdy interviewers baiting him, asking him really stupid fandom-y type questions that they know he doesn't care about, that they know they're going to get a rise out of him and get a response from him, and then they can share the video. Ford. And we'll get 500,000 people to watch that on YouTube, and it'll be great for us. It should be considered a crime. I hate it. Like, that's like this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, panders at the audience. That type of journalism is pandering at its viewers, its readers, and everything like that. Like, it's ridiculous. We become a society of panderers, ladies and gentlemen. Like, all we care about is just trying to stroke whatever feeling we can out of somebody, and not giving anything with any depth.
Get off my plane.
Jesus.
All right.
Can we watch that next week? We're watching that next week instead, right?
Let's do that. Guys, listen, if you're on Patreon, make sure you throw some recommendations in the hat for us. Next week, Nick and I will be spinning the old wheel to review a film that is not in theaters, or at least I assume it'll be one that's not in theaters.
I'm going to recommend, I want 3 people, 3 heroes on Patreon, 3 amazing, amazing heroes on Patreon. Mm-hmm. What were the 3 movies that we didn't see? Whatever they were earlier in the episode.
I saw The TV Glow, The Beast, and Evil Does Not Exist.
Yeah, those 3 movies. I want those 3 movies in the list. Somebody please add them in there. Somebody please make those your choices for us. Yeah. Because I would really... we already know Brad's going to put like Postocalypse 2, the Post-Ning, or the Spaghetti-O Massacre, or whatever.
I can guarantee you Brad loved Deadpool and Wolverine. I will tell you right now.
I don't know.
It's for him. It's for Julio. It's for the MCU.
Julio loves the MCU anyway, though.
Yeah, he loves it. He loves it. If he doesn't give this an 8 out of 10, I'll be shocked. Yeah. For me, there were parts I enjoyed. It just overall was a little disappointing. So next week we are going to be. By the way, just to wrap up, Nick dropped a fucking 4 on this one. So the good news is he liked it better than Roadhouse, but not very good. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
I finally found a movie that's worse than Furiosa and Dune Part 2.
You son of a bitch. I gave it a 6 out of 10, so I do recommend it, but just go in with that little caveat that it's basically just a comedy with Deadpool and Wolverine in it, and then hopefully you'll enjoy yourself. So overall, a 5 out of 10 from the P's on Deadpool and Wolverine. Next week, we will be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, starring Mr. Josh Hartnett, a psychological thriller where he takes his daughter to a pop concert, and some hijinks ensue in the stadium there.
Oh God. You were talking about M. Night Shyamalan. Okay.
Some stuff going on there. So let's see what we think about Trap next week, Nick. Anything else you want to say as we send off ourselves here?
Trap's going to be the first the first new Shyamalan I've seen in quite a while, because I didn't watch Old. I didn't see that.
Nah, it wasn't very
good. What else
good.
has he done lately? Probably the last new Shyamalan film I saw was
Knock
Glass.
at the Cabin was pretty good. Did you see Knock at the Cabin last year?
I didn't see Knock at the Cabin, no. The last thing I probably saw his was Glass, which is like one of the worst films I've ever seen. That
was the one where
like so bad.
Was that the one where like Bruce Willis died in a mud puddle or whatever?
That Bruce Willis died in a mud puddle. Yep.
Yeah, that was so stupid. Yeah, no, I
didn't even like everybody always sings the praises of Split. Like Split's only good because of James McAvoy.
Yeah,
James McAvoy is the only good thing about that. That film is trash. I hated it. But McAvoy's performance is really good, so it almost evens out. Oh, compared to Glass, it's a masterpiece. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That should be our benchmark for everything on this show.
That's on
How
the
is
poster.
it compared to Glass?
Hey, there was no mud puddles taking people out. I don't know. All right. Well, next week we'll talk about Trap, and then we will be spinning the wheel for the following week, and we're going to discuss a roulette pick from one of you guys. If you're not on Patreon, check the show notes below. You can join up over there and help us out, help produce the show for as little as $1 a month. Wow, that is cheap, man. You can do that and help throw a pick in there for us.
That's cheaper than Gerald.
And I'm going to do this to end the show. All right, Nick. I'll see you next week, buddy.
So sorry for your ears, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus. Thank you, everybody. We love you.